Next topic, and it was sort of suggested a little bit prior. We've seen that pharma has actually been a lot slower to adopt digital and social media than, for example, other industries. And, Bonin, I wanted to see from your perspective, what are the most important lessons, not being in the healthcare and pharmaceutical space, what do you think are the most important lessons that the pharmaceutical industry can learn about digital and social?
Of course. First, thank you very much for having me. It's been exciting to be a part of the advisory board, and I think that the future is quite bright given kind of where POZEN is at. Also, just want to say that I, in my past life, I have had a lot of pharmaceutical experience as well as a lot of other industries, so I've seen kind of both sides. But I think that one of the biggest lessons that can be learned from other industries is that you have to go where your consumer is at, more than, most importantly, and you have to change your business model to match that. And I constantly talk about, look, we are now, digital has taken over every aspect of our lives. We are vastly becoming a 100% digital society. Consumers are using tools, social media, mobile in droves. And yet organizations have not moved that fast. And I ask, how many people have a better browser version at home than they do at work, right? And everybody raises their hand. And that's crazy when you actually think about it, because organizations actually have to be 110% digital, but yet there still is a gap between where organizations are and where society is. And I think you're going to see more and more companies move to putting digital at their core. And I think that starts with understanding that now it's a world of two-way engagement. It's a world of consumer connections. It's a world of consumer engagement overall. And what's exciting about where POZEN is that they're starting from kind of what the future business model will be, and they're putting digital at the core. And so I think that learning that consumer engagement is more important than almost anything that we've seen right now, and I think that that's something that you can learn from other industries.
I would imagine, Raj, you probably have some thoughts about consumer engagement. Inside the healthcare space, are there any sort of core lessons that you think that pharma can continue to learn about that level of engagement using digital and social media technologies?
Yeah, I think to Bonin's point, it's about jumping in and really listening to what consumers are saying. I think the fact that POZEN is here at the top levels of the marketing chain, embracing this kind of technology is what it takes. Most product managers, most marketing managers are afraid of engaging with the consumer for fear of getting that call from the head of marketing saying, oh, you violated this policy. And I think when you have the senior team involved at the outset, really sitting in rooms with people like Bonin who are breaking down the doors with products like Gatorade in the social media space, you just get this natural flow of information that changes the dialogue all the way down the chain. So I think this is exactly where we want to be. This is why I was excited to be part of this group. I think the whole industry can learn from this kind of an initiative, and I hope we see more of it.
Might I add, though, too, it's not, we talk often about marketers, and the reality is to really do this properly in this space, I think it needs a blend of multiple disciplines. It's not just marketing, it's not just public relations, it's not just customer service, it's not just technologists, it's sort of a blend of a number of different factors. And so one of the nice things about being involved in this group is that we're able to start to look at that and see what is the right mix to be able to make the to be able to actually support digital and social approaches in business.
That's great. Well, Meredith, you're steeped in a lot of the research and data. You're sort of running the front line on what's happening and what the current perceptions are inside the industry. What are the emerging technologies and platforms? What kind of indicators are we getting that sort of suggest opportunities for pharma from a platform perspective?
Sure, certainly, and certainly we've been at the point of more than half of U.S. adults, almost 3/4 actually being online for health. All physicians have been online since 2004 or something like that. But I think what's really capturing the imagination of a lot of in pharma, and especially with a lot of what POZEN's trying to do, is there's a huge opportunity for mobile. First, because it's a platform that's so heavily adopted by physicians and so well suited to the on-demand kind of information needs to get their questions answered quickly, and it's with them all the time and really very oriented to serving that need for physicians. The other thing we see with patients is as patients have these devices with them all the time, it's really very well suited to providing kind of more in-depth services for compliance, adherence, et cetera, because they have those phones with them from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. So there's a lot more opportunity to really have a meaningful impact on their health.
That's great. And then Daniel, from your perspective, being very sort of close to that HCP physician community, any other sort of insights that you've kind of gleaned about those sort of the trend adoptions and tendencies of our physician audiences?
Well, physicians are in fact starting to tweet. It's taken them a little while, but it is in fact taking hold. And I think what's starting to happen is that physicians are recognizing that these technologies, rather than being threatening to their authority, are realizing that they can be great facilitators of their communication, both with one another and ultimately to their patients.
That's great. And Bonin, at the consumer level, what do you think has been most successful at attracting consumers from a digital perspective?
I think that the largest successes have been those that, again, connect with the consumer and really focus on deep engagement. I think the tactics there's so many tactics that are successful, right? So it could be everything from video, it could be social media, but I think what, again, is most important is that it comes from an organization that's starting with digital at its core. So I would actually change the question, say those that are the most ineffective are those that have been bolt-ons. And that's what we see, I think, primarily in the industry today, which is I'm starting with big TV and then I'm bolting on, some type of digital or social execution, versus I'm starting with the consumer at the center. Where are they at? They're here, and then how do I build around that? And so I think that that's what's exciting, again, about what we've discussed during our meetings with POZEN, is that there's a unique opportunity to start with where is the consumer at, and then build new ways to connect with them.
That's great. And Raj, do you think there's an opportunity for the pharma industry to help make that patient-physician relationship more valuable using digital? And
of course. I mean, I think that there's a huge opportunity, and I think a big part of that opportunity really just comes from having marketing groups talk to each other across those two important groups, the physician group and the consumer group, and really thinking about holistic marketing strategies that do center on creating a much stronger relationship between the two. And I think digital technology is a perfect way to apply that, and that's why I think a lot of the discussions we've had here have been centering on, what are those core concepts that can really bridge the gap.
That's great. Any other thoughts that our board members would like to add on this idea of reinforcing that physician-patient relationship using digital?
I was just going to say, I think that the connected patient and the connected caregiver are going to probably be some of the largest forces that we will see in healthcare. And I think that what's interesting is that those physicians and those pharmaceutical companies that actually appreciate what that transformation is going to be and look ahead are going to, I believe, be the ones that are successful. And I use the point that that's how my dad, he's in the doctor's office and he's texting me, he's 84, and he's got an iPhone, and, he'll take photos of, his test results and stuff. That's how the caregiver is also interacting with the person who they're giving care to. So it's a huge transformation.
And might I add, too, that conversely, the company that doesn't get involved will be sort of at a competitive disadvantage, because that is going to be the growing expectation, is that the organization is going to be there to help with that connected patient, to help with that connected caregiver, to help with that connected physician.
I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I sit in meetings and I kind of have the urge to scream out, the emperor's got no clothes, or the capacity for self-delusion in large organizations, it just never ceases to amaze me sometimes. And I think that sometimes I wonder, people, if they could have their way, they would go back to the days of primetime TV, whether it's purple pills or whatever the promotion is, and there's almost a moment where the industry needs to say, it's time to get over that. Things are changing. And at its core, what social media is about very much a leveling of the playing field. The opportunity to control the message is no longer possible. And I think that there's been a slow progression of that to occur. I think what's been touched on here from a couple different people is that that's occurring between the providers and the patients, whether people like it or not. The opportunity for industry is no longer to control that conversation, which is what I think has been the past history. The opportunity is to become part of that conversation. And like sort of the exodus from Egypt, Some people will make it to the promised land and some people won't. But I think a lot of people are going to drop off along the way.
Good point. Actually, it sort of brings us to our next discussion point. I mean, we talked a lot about that physician-patient relationship and maybe how can digital technologies help facilitate that. But obviously, there's a deeper relationship that can be created between pharmaceutical companies and the patient themselves. And, just Marc, I wanted to know if you had any sort of top-line thoughts about what companies can do to be more consumer-facing, and what does that look like in a digital ecosystem?
Sure, absolutely. And I know there's been a lot of discussion already on this subject, and Meredith provided some sense of the dynamics of the changing of this world. But obviously, patients and people in general are turning increasingly to digital tools to help them make informed healthcare decisions and on a regular basis. And there's really been that emergence over the past 4 to 5 years of that empowered e-patient that's out there seeking information, but also of sort of that e-patient advocate, a well-informed patient who then becomes almost a center of another community, another universe. About 4 years ago, I was approached by one of those e-patient advocates, a patient who had diabetes, by the name of Amy Tendrich, and now has a blog, Diabetes Mine. At the time, she had about 20,000 or so people who read her blog every week to find out her perspective on health. And she called because she was surprised that despite the fact that she had this level of readership and that people were taking her story and her thoughts and sharing them with others in that online diabetes community, the industry was not there. And her concern was that there's a lot of information in this space that's incorrect, that is lacking in detail, and that people were crying out for accurate information in a timely way, presented in the formats that they're looking for, and that organizations themselves were not part of that conversation. There's a huge opportunity for industry to be part of that. And the way to go about doing that is to start figuring out ways to understand that ecosystem, understand that universe, but also to have the people, the resources, the structures in place to be able to inject yourself in an appropriate way with appropriate information where and when people are looking for it. And that's one of the things I think that we, as an advisory board, have had some discussions about to see in terms of what we could do to help POZEN as it tries to figure out that model.